Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for all of you who are attending around the world. We know that we have several guests planning to attend, and there are some people who haven't joined us yet, but they will be streaming in a little bit. So at this point, I want to get right into the program because it's exciting. It's new. It's something that we know we've been waiting to hear. And Randy Powell is the expert on this. Some of you will find that if you are in mastermind groups, that it will resonate with you. And those of us who haven't, we're going to learn a lot from this. So let me begin with, and let me tell our guests that Randy will have an interactive session so you can ask questions when he opens it up for that. The theme of today's meeting is habits of successful entrepreneurs. Highly successful, as a matter of fact. Our speaker is a high energy keynote speaker, author, and success coach. He's the creator of several organizations or programs that he developed. Extraordinary Performance Success System, the Blueprint for Success, the Courage to Live Full Out, the Envision Success brand, and he's an Amazon best-selling author. His background includes major leadership roles with Miller Brewing Company, Northrop Aerospace, Fleetwood Enterprises, and the U.S. government. He promotes the Envision Success virtual and live events around the country, teaching entrepreneurs, emerging speakers, coaches, and consultants how to create the courage to live full out and achieve the success they want. For the next 45 minutes, he will provide a mastermind of information to help create a powerful understanding of the philosophy, mindset, and actions that allow people to become highly successful. Please welcome distinguished Toastmaster and entrepreneur, Randy Powell.
That is an awesome introduction. I hope I can live up to that. Good morning, everyone. My voice is a little off, so if I have a moment where I have to take a little bit of coffee in, please, we'll just keep moving on and you pretend like I'm talking and I'm a ventriloquist. Today, habits of highly successful entrepreneurs. You could add speakers, coaches, consultants, and individuals who are trying to become more, do more, get more out of life and achieve greater success for themselves. Now, when I say that, that's a mouthful. So what do I mean? I mean that most people say they want to achieve success. However, the difficulty in that is, in my experience, that most people have not defined success and what that means to them, what it feels like and looks like before they start the journey. And so I would share and challenge you, if you have begun the journey of being an entrepreneur, you have already started a business, want to start a business, you expect to start a business, or you have already been in business for some period of time, maybe this would be a good time to step back before the new year hits and take a look at that and clearly ask yourself, have you defined what success would look and feel like to you? And the reason I ask that and share that is because I have clients that have seemingly been successful, but yet they're not happy. They're not living a fulfilling life. And can you imagine being a multi-millionaire, literally a multi-millionaire? Now, millionaires years ago was a big deal. It's not a big deal anymore. It's all about your mindset and where you're at. But nowadays, multi-millionaire, you're starting to really creep in on something. But could you imagine being a multi-millionaire and most people think you would have it made in the shade, so to speak, but yet being unhappy, unfulfilled, and unsatisfied? And so I would leave you with that in terms of defining what success would look and feel like to you. Now, by a show of hands, if you would, if you are beginning your journey as an entrepreneur, raise your hand. Let's see what that looks like. I want to see who's in the room. If you have already been in business for some time, raise your hand there. Let's see what that looks like. Awesome. So what you're telling me, Frankie, is you have been in business for some time. Anyone else out there? I know Charles has been in business for some time. Musa, you own your own business? Awesome. How about you, Bond? Yes, yes. And I think you can go ahead and unmute. And Nora, I think you are you in business for yourself or just starting out?
Still looking around.
Just starting.
Just starting out. Awesome. Okay. So we have a little bit of feel. Susan says she's I believe she's been in business since 1998. Awesome. So let me share with you that in my view, success is like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. In other words, you and only you can define what success would look and feel like for you. So don't let the outside world tell you what success is. I'm also going to share some resources at the end of the conversation that we're going to have today, and that you can use that information as you will. Now, in terms of reading, studying, and doing, those are three of the things that you're going to do with these resources if you have not already done that with the resources that I'm going to share with you. The results of reading, studying, and then the doing equals results. Now, what I would share with you is that no matter what, if you take action, as we all know, you're going to get results. Would everyone nod their head? You're going to get some results, right? Now, those results will either be positive or negative, but you're going to get some results. I would also share with you that successful entrepreneurs always look for results, and they look to multiply the positive results and then anchor and learn from the negative so that they can take that negative result and squeeze the positive out of that. In other words, what is the learning from the negative results or the outcomes that we get when we try things that just don't work? Would everyone raise your hand and agree that there's some positive that can come out of a negative result? Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So here, a little bit on the rule side of most masterminds. Most masterminds have simple rules and they all operate differently. Obviously, we want to have respect for each other and respect each other's time so that when we get to the interacting part, we want to limit our questions and our interaction to 1 or 2 minutes so that we don't take up the entire time and other people have a chance to share or ask questions. Also, in a mastermind, it's important to show your face. Now, why do I say that? Because if you're not showing your face, you're probably not actually embedded in the conversation. I know that a lot of times in Toastmasters meetings, we're doing different things, we're multitasking and our face is not being shown, which that's okay, that happens. But in a real mastermind, you are there to interact and to be a part of the mastermind. And therefore, we always ask people to show their face and be involved in the conversation. And then the third thing I would say is if you need to take notes, but this is being recorded, so you can always refer back to the notes. So here's your thought for the day. Raise your hand if you think of yourself as a creator. Raise your hand if you think of yourself as a creator. The reason I asked that question, I'll use the example of speaking. If you were looking to become a speaker, speaking in business is 10% of the business. Let me say that again. A professional speaker, it's 10% of the business of speaking and 90% preparation and running the business. And a lot of people entering into the speaking industry or the speaking world get that backwards. They think it's all about speaking, and it's not. The practice of being in business, etc., is the 90%, and you sharpen your saw every day, you grow, you study, and when you are required to perform, that 10% is exciting and it really sticks in people because you've done the work. So preparation is key, not only to speaking, but to any and everything you do. And I think Charles would agree with that for sure. We've had some conversations about that in the past. The reason I ask is, are you a creator? It's my belief that you need to become a creator if you're not a creator. What do I mean by that? Create something and then take that out to the world. but it's not going to be just anything. The reason people are in business, as you know, is to make a profit. So you have something that you have that people want and need. Therefore, you develop something to solve that problem that they have, that they're experiencing. And of course, the market has to be big enough so that you can stay in business and create long-term clients, long-term value, and that those same clients keep coming back as you're continuing to grow and bring new clients into the business. So you need to become a creator. So that could be something like writing a book. That could be something like creating articles for magazines. That could be something like developing a process that people use to help them get from where they are to where they want to be. Anything that you create, you put your name to it, and all of that falls under your brand. And your brand is something that people will start to associate with the problem you're solving and what you're all about. So your brand is not just a figure, it's not just a swoosh, it is everything that falls under that, everything that is represented by that organization or that company. So when you think about the things you're creating, what is your master plan? What is the one big problem that you're solving or that you're helping people do that they could not do on their own? In other words, if they could do it on their own, they wouldn't come to you. They wouldn't come to you for your products and services. They have a want and a need, and that you're filling that want and need. Are there any questions on that? You can go ahead and open up. Any questions on anything that we've talked about so far?
Randy,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things you said that I hope everybody's hearing is that you've got to build a need. You've got to find what their needs are. What you want to talk about means nothing to them. What's going to help them grow, it's digging in, listening, digging deeper and listening more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I hope in the coming months and over the next year, as you guys look to develop yourselves and to grow your businesses, that something that Charles just said, you have to be solving a problem. And part of that is learning to listen, not just talk at the customer or at the potential client. And a lot more is coming on that. And we'll share a little bit more about that. And I'm glad you brought that up, Charles. So I'm going to just name off a few of the qualities of highly successful people. Highly successful entrepreneurs, same thing. And I want you to, when I call out these words, I want you to really think about how it relates to you. And have you nailed that down? Or is that a place that you could use more help and development with? Are you passionate about what you're doing? The word passionate. And what does passionate mean to you when you really think about it? Now, I'll give you an example. I wanted nothing to do with speaking, and I knew nothing about coaching 8 years ago. Absolutely nothing about it. This is my 10th year as a Toastmaster, and I left Toastmasters for 2 years to develop my business. However, I didn't want anything to do with speaking at the time, way back when, and I had no idea or thought that anything could come of me speaking out in public. Wanted nothing to do with it. Now I am so passionate about what I do and the services I provide and how much I help people and the joy and the fun of adding value to people's lives and seeing them change and the transformation that I can't think of doing anything else in life from this point in my life to the time I'm no longer here. And so I want to leave some sprinkles behind so that other people can pick up those things as I'm not here anymore. Committed, second word, committed. Highly successful people are committed to what they lay down. In other words, whatever they put out there, they are committed to it, they stand behind it, and they take action that shows they're committed. Determined. Are you determined to be successful? A lot of people say they want this, they want that, but they're not determined. In other words, things will get in their way and distract them, and distractions are one of the greatest enemies of somebody who wants to be successful. You have to limit the distractions in your life. And I mean across the board, if you truly want to be extremely successful. It's giving up a lot. And you have to recognize and understand how determined are you, and do you want to play in that ballpark? Focus. Focus is something that is extremely hard. Certainly for me, I'm high energy, I'm ADHD. I call it high definition ADHD. This is about the calmest you will ever see me. And on stage, I have to plant myself. And most of the time, I'm not on the stage, I'm down in the crowd. Focus. It's extremely important. What does that mean to you? Patience. You have to be patient. In this world, we want everything right now, and we don't want to do the work. I'm sorry, it's hard work. I hate to tell you that. I'm not going to pretend it's not. And if you're in business and have been, and you're successful, you know it's hard work, and it's every day grinding. But the outcome, the positive side of that, is something to really look forward to. Persistent. Are you persistent? In other words, when you hit a wall, do you find a way to get around it, under it, over it? You have to maintain a system and a mindset that allows you to push through the roadblocks of life, because they're going to happen. Decision maker. I have a client in LA, runs a multi-million-dollar business. I meet with him once a month face-to-face and every 2 weeks online. He's the nicest person on the planet, but it's very difficult, and he's slow to make decisions. And if you want to be highly, highly successful, which he is, but he's in a partner, it's him and his wife, you got to make your decisions. You got to grab information, but you can't sit on decision making. You have to become a decision maker if you're not. The last that I'll share with you is attitude. Have you checked your attitude lately? People do business with people who they know, like, and what? Trust. How does that happen? They have to even know first that you even exist. What that means in today's world is you have to be out there on social media, whether you like it, love it, don't like it. You have to be out there in the public. You have to tell people. If people can't find you, they don't know you exist. They will never know that you have the power and the ability, the skills, knowledge, and ability to help solve their problems. So you have to commit and be persistent and show people how to find you. You have to be findable, as Dr. Myron Golden said. If you're not findable, which is the first step in business, and if you limit yourself to a local area, that's okay if that's your business. But to really unleash the talent that you have, you need to think outside the box and go bigger. And that's something that takes time. So for example, I'll give you an example of real life for me. We're having a local live event here in Marietta soon, but we're also going to have a larger event in LA. We're going to have a larger event in Dallas. We're going to have a larger event in Tampa, Florida in 2023. So think outside the mindset of just being a local business person. Are you solving problems that can be used elsewhere as well to really magnify who you are and grow your business? Any questions on that information so far? So that's just some of the qualities of highly successful people. Raise your hand and speak up if you got questions, thoughts. Okay, so everyone's silent there. So let me give you some action steps. Now, again, this is being recorded, but I want to share some action steps with you that I think.
Frankie has her hand up.
Who does?
Frankie.
Okay, because I can't see everybody on my screen.
All right.
Go ahead and take me off. Yeah, there you go.
Hi.
Okay.
I just had one caveat of what you said.
Yep.
You said it's hard work and it's a grind. If you're loving what you do and you're passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't feel like work.
You do the work. And
you're absolutely correct. It doesn't feel,
but it's fun.
It's loads of fun, and it actually does not feel like work. However, to get into the mindset of understanding that the grind, it still is work, but it doesn't feel like work. So what Frankie said is true. What I said is true. It is work, but it doesn't feel like work, like Frankie is saying. She's absolutely correct. There is a difference. I think Susan has her hand up.
Uh,
Or was that from earlier?
I think
think
it was
earlier.
earlier.
That was
Okay.
from earlier. Okay. So let me
My
give you some.
apologies.
April has her hand up.
Okay, April, go ahead.
Good morning, Randy.
Good morning.
You mentioned that you are passionate about speaking now, but prior to that, you really didn't want to have anything to do with speaking. And so what was that transition point that you recognized, I need
Well,
to do this?
Yeah, I'll give you the short story because it is a long story. But the short story is I wrote a prayer many years ago for a family reunion, and everyone stood up on the tables and clapped and all that. And on the plane ride home, my wife said, "That's what you're supposed to be doing." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "You're supposed to be speaking." I said, "No way, it's not going to happen." And a year later, she changed jobs and she worked her magic, and her boss had a coach in Corona. Long story short, I met with the coach. I did ask if he was buying breakfast, and she said no. But we did talk for about an hour, and he asked me, did I know anything about Toastmasters? And I basically said, no, I've heard of them, but I don't know anything about them. He said, well, why don't you check out Toastmasters? Now, this was at the end of our breakfast conversation. So he analyzed me and put it all together. And I did call Toastmasters. The first club I called, here's a lesson. If you got somebody answering your Toastmasters, always make sure the right person is answering the call, just like the front desk of a business. When you walk in, your first impressions are crazy, right? But that makes the difference. The first Toastmasters club I called, it turned me off. They just weren't congenial. The second Toastmasters club I called, I fell in love with just the guy on the phone, the way he spoke to me. And it was, the gentleman at the time was at 1677 Temecula Toastmasters, and that was my home club for many years. So what I did was I joined the club, I visited the club, came home, and she said to me, "Are you going back?" And I said, well, I'm thinking there's something about it. I think I'll go back. I went back to the club. Long story short, I've been a Toastmaster for 10 years. So I've charted some clubs, charted some advanced clubs, worked with Roz over the years, et cetera, et cetera. Did my first keynote speech at District 12 at TLI. So my first speech. So what was the transformation for me? People were asking me as a new member of the club to come to them, and would I mentor them? Would I sit down and talk with them? And I thought, I'm trying to learn myself. But I did. I answered the call and sat down with people. And three things happened. There were a few more, but three major things happened. One guy came to our club. He had lost everything in Mexico. He brought his mom and dad to America, and he was looking for a new start. And he asked me would I sit down with him on Saturday mornings. Of course, my wife wasn't all that about it, but I said, hey, Ben has asked me would he was starting an ambulatory service. So we sat down every morning on Saturday, and I said, the only thing is, please, if you can't make it, call me. He said, okay. Fast forward, a year went by, he got his life together, and he saw me at TLI at Cal Baptist. He was leaving early, and that was the year Dave Henderson won the championship and was there speaking at Cal Baptist. He came up, put an envelope in my jacket and said, look at that later, would you? I got to go. I got in the car at the end of the day. I opened up the letter, started looking at it. It was a simple one-page letter, handwritten, nothing fancy. There was no winning lottery ticket in there or anything. I started reading the letter, and about halfway through it, I'm a big guy. Tears started coming. I held back. I called my wife from the parking lot, and I said, honey, Ben sent me a letter, and she could tell I was upset a little bit. She said, put it away, come home, we'll read it together. We read it on the couch, and she looked at me, she said, I told you that's what you're supposed to be doing. That was the first thing. Second thing is, during that keynote speech at Cal Baptist, my first keynote, a year later, I was there speaking at a breakout session, and a lady came up to me and she said, Randy, you don't know me, but last year I heard you speak, and I was in a very bad place. I was considering, and while she was telling me this, again, I was in a three-piece suit, all decked out. They were taking the microphones off of me. And she said, I was considering ending my life. And I decided when I got in the car and started driving off that I was gonna stick around. I was gonna make some changes. I was gonna push through. And I just wanted to say thank you for that conversation with us that you had. And I didn't know what to say, but I'll tell you what, I ran to the bathroom and started splashing water on my face because I'd never had anybody say anything like that to me. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing was people had continued to come to me, and I was driving home one day and I kept fighting the feeling that this is not for me. And all of a sudden I looked up and I was coming down the Temecula Freeway with a 15 and 215 meet. And somebody had just met with me and told me something. And I just said, okay, Lord, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing the rest of my life, let's do this. So that was the transformation. I had to get hit over the head a few times to see that there actually was some benefit to what I was doing and to that extreme, because I couldn't believe it for myself. So if you don't believe that you have massive, massive good stuff to give to the world, if you're playing small, you got to stop playing small. If you're already in business, if you're going in business for yourself, think about, don't limit yourself and don't play small. Yes, you have to invest in yourself. Yes, you have to grow and learn and all that. And there is a lot to it. As Frankie will tell you, as Charles will tell you, it's a daily effort. It's every single day. I'm up at 5 a.m. pretty much every day, and I'm still done. My last client is at 6 o'clock if I'm coaching. I cut it off at 6 o'clock. So that's kind of the short story, and it's not really a short story. There's a lot more to it. But I want to get, so that hopefully that answers your question. Through my transformation, there were a lot of other things that went along with it. Action steps. First, before we get into action steps, real quick, I want to talk to you about something that Mark Cuban has said many times over. And the reason I bring up Mark Cuban is not because he's famous and well-known and blah, 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 although I do watch Shark Tank. I don't watch a lot of television. Remember, to me, those are distractions, but there are certain things you have to stay informed. But he said, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. The worst case possible is that you eventually learn what you love. So if you're doing something and you fail, you're doing something, you're eventually, as Les Brown says, you're going to fail your way to success. And we've been programmed to think that we have to hit the target all the time. And I will tell you that if you're not failing, and then having a success point, failing, and then something good happening, then you're not on the right road. If everything is rosy all the time, something is going to collapse on you. So you have to try things, fail, see what works, try things, fail. And I'll give you a real live example. We've got a live event coming up locally. I'm going to tell you more about that later. I was on the phone with one of my mentors last night. He's a multimillionaire, you wouldn't know who he was by talking to him. He's as down to earth as anybody, but he has this stuff locked in. And I was ready to give up on a project that I was working on. And he got on the phone with me yesterday, and then he jumped on Zoom, and I was pulling my hair out, and he changed my whole perspective on something that I was struggling with. And it's something that each and every one of you have got to learn the secret to this thing that I was doing that you're going to need to do if you want to amplify and double, triple, quadruple your business as you move forward. I doubled my business during COVID, by the way, and that was a transformation, and we had to make some major changes, but they were fun, and I learned a whole lot, and I got a little pea head. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. Now, let's talk about some action steps, things that you can do that you should write down, and you should check out the recording. Entrepreneurs, high performance people, highly successful people get serious. They get serious. They are serious. And what do I mean by that? They're serious about the game. They're serious about playing. They stick to it. They make it, or they design around the type of day that they want to experience. So let me give you an example. If you get up and in your head, you're negative and you're talking and thinking about problems rather than designing the day and putting in your mind the type of day you're going to have in advance, you're hurting yourself. You should decide every day how the day is going to go, and you design how you're going to be successful. It's a mindset. Here's another example. Tips. Does anybody out there know what the word tip means? Tell me right now. Jump online. Oh, unmute yourself. When you go to a restaurant and you tip someone, what are you doing? Bond?
Recognition,
You're what?
recognition, reward,
Okay. Anybody else?
And thank you.
One more person. Frankie?
Charles has his hand up.
Charles?
I have my hand up for something different.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. The tip means to ensure promptness. When you go to a restaurant and you tip, wealthy people, successful people, people who know the deal, tip in advance. Tip in advance. You know why? They're designing the outcome that they want prior to it happening. They're designing the future, the experience they expect to have. They're ensuring their success. Now, does it work all the time? Nothing is 100%. But I guarantee you, if you went to the Hollywood Bowl, and by the way, this is their 100th year celebration. When I first came to California in '82, I used to go to Hollywood Bowl every year for the Playboy Jazz Festival. Excuse me. You take a $50 bill out of your pocket. Your ticket's way up in the back. You go in there and you hand that $50 bill the right way to the right person, you'll end up in a box seat. I guarantee it. You'll have service like crazy. 50, 100, whatever it is. If you want to ensure that you have a better experience, 9 times out of 10, I'll say, tip in advance. Don't wait to see if you're going to have service, good service, and then tip. And successful people know that. There are just certain things that successful people know, and they don't waste time mulling around with the details in terms of, in their mind, arguing about this or that with themselves. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So they're serious players in life. Second tip, write it down. Design your goals, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, however many years you want. I sit on a board of the largest employer in Marietta, California. I won't mention the name, but I'm on the board of directors. And we plan out 2 years in advance, but we know what the vision is that's going to take us out 5 years, 10 years. But that can change. The dynamics of the world can change. So, but if you haven't designed, if you don't have a set of goals written down and they're not in your face every day and you're not looking at them, you can get sidetracked and what? Distracted. Distraction. It's huge. It's a huge enemy. Personal development scares most people. But if you design it in as part of your process or your developmental process, you will amplify your success. Successful people know they have to get smarter. I don't care how smart they are, they know they have to get smarter. But what do they do about that? They know that ideas create results and amplify their success. They know that if the information is abundant out there nowadays, you can go on the internet and get the information. They commit to doing that. They commit to investing in themselves. They're not going to conferences and things of that nature just to do one thing. It's not one dimensional. They're going there for multi-dimensional reasons. They're going there to meet people who they don't know. They're going there to learn things that they don't know. They're going there to make and start what we call relationship capital, building relationship capital. I didn't know that 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I was following a few people who I looked up to, who I knew I had to model because they were successful, but there's a lot more to modeling somebody who's successful. And so you have to understand why they're getting out, and you have to get out. If you think that you can live in a bubble and be extremely successful, now it depends on, again, your definition of success. I'm okay with you being a small businessman in Marietta, Temecula, Riverside, or whatever, if that's what you want. But if you want more than that, bigger than that, you want to connect with greater, well, I shouldn't say greater people, you want to connect with people who are doing great things, then you have to put yourself out there. So, but they know they have to get smarter. They know that it's a lifelong process and we're never smart enough because guess what? Technology is moving forward. Every time I'm on a mastermind, I hear about a technology that, well, Can I use it? Is it the timing right? Maybe not for me, but it's out there. But if you're not engaging, you won't know about the technology that's coming and whether it's useful now or whether it'll be useful later when you're ready for it. Create great habits. If you don't have a routine, wake up. What's your routine? Raise your hand if you have a daily routine that you stick to no matter what. Yeah. If you have a daily routine, do you have it written down? Is it in your face, or have you already embedded it in your system? Mine's embedded in my system now, but I wrote it down and I share with my clients all the time. You need to have a daily routine. And I tell my clients, the only time my daily routine changes a little bit, I have to adjust, is if my wife needs something and I need to plug in to help her. She's the only person I switch up my daily routine for. So there's certain things early in the morning from the time I get up, the first couple hours a day that we do. And part of that is getting up, of course, taking care of your personal business and checking your daily schedule. And I also make sure that I spend an hour a day in the morning, minimum, just studying. How many of you study your business, study a model, somebody you're looking up to, somebody that you is already doing what you want to do? Minimum an hour. And I mean study. Most days it's 2 or 3 hours, but you really got to have a routine where you're focused on doing that work. Okay, it's fun and it helps you grow. Create those great habits. Okay, here's a big one. This is number 5. Stop doing the things that you know are not in your best interest. Let me say that one more time. Stop doing the things that you know are not in your best interest. Do I need to say anything for clarification on that? I don't think so, but each and every one of us have been in that boat where we've been doing things that it's not really in our best interest, from simple to the more serious stuff. So think about yourself and think about who you're hanging around, who you're associating with, who's stressing you out, who you have to run from when you see them in the parking lot at a shopping mall or the store. You don't, who's wasting your time? I mean, it goes on and on and on. The list goes on and on. I remember Les telling us at a MasterMind one day, he said the same thing. He got out of the car and he just cringed and got back in the car because he saw somebody he did not want to engage because they're negative, they're Debbie Downers. There's a million reasons. They draw your energy out of you. It's all about them and not about, others. So number 6, give yourself a powerful reason to change. Somebody asked me how that transformation happened. It wasn't one thing, it was a multitude of things, but together they were and became a powerful reason to change and to transform myself. Now, here's something that Les Brown also says, and you may have heard it. They're defining moments in our life. And you have to look back, and successful people can look back and nail it down what those defining moments were. If you can refer back to those defining moments, those days when you're having a tough time, things aren't going well, employees are pulling tricks on you. There's a million things that go on in business. Somebody sends you a contract and it wasn't written in the contract, wasn't written the way you guys had agreed. There's a million things, but when you can refer back to those defining moments and remind yourself of what got you here, and that's powerful and it's important because it grounds you. And then this number 7, it's futile to compare yourself to other people. And we, as natural as we are beings, we compare ourselves to other people, even subconsciously. I look at the paradigm of being in line. I was in the military, and you're always in line in the military. If you've ever been in the military, you know what I'm talking about. Everything's a line, whether it's a chow hall, whatever it is, it's a line. Well, in civilian life, it is too. But think about yourself being in line and always comparing yourself to the person in front of you. They may have just gotten started a year before you. You don't know what their circumstances are. So there's no power in fact, there's disempowerment in trying to compare yourself to other people, whether it's your competitors. And by the way, you really don't have any competitors. That's a mindset you have to get out of. You have to get into the abundance mindset. If you're solving problems and you're training yourself and you're growing and you're learning, there is no competition because they can't get inside your head and take everything you know and repeat that, okay? We are, each and every one of us are significant in our own bodies and our own minds. So don't think that you're really competing against anybody else, because you're going to say things and do things a little bit different than somebody else that's providing the same or solving the same problem you're solving. You're just coming at it differently, and that person's coming at it differently. If the person who you're marketing to believes that you can help, that they can help you get, if you can help that person get to where they want to be, and you know it, you're gonna speak to that in the right way and to attract that person. So that's number 7. Don't compare yourself to other people. Successful people do not waste time on things like that. Number 8, your thoughts create your destiny. And you've heard that in a million different ways from probably 100 different great leaders. You've heard it from successful people, but the hard part is getting it in your, what I call internalizing it. When I talk to clients, especially those who want to become speakers, about internalizing their talk, so they're not a recording of the talk, okay, of the conversation. You have to internalize this stuff. When you're speaking on stage, the only way to come across as real and authentic is to internalize your message. And that takes a lot. But great speakers internalize all the time, as an example. So it's in your head. Once you get in your head, you got to actually act it out. And then you got to act it out so much that you start feeling different. Not only feeling different on the inside, feeling different when you communicate with people. So your thoughts do create your destiny. If you think that you can't do it, then you're right. You're absolutely correct. And if you think and believe you can, you will. It may not happen on your schedule when you want it to happen, but it will happen in transformation. You'll wake up one day and you'll go, OMG, I actually did that. I have a client. She said she could never write a book. Today, she's an author. I had another client said, there's no way he could do X, because if I tell you what that is, then you'll know who that client is. And he's doing it today. It just happens, but it happens on a schedule that's different perhaps than what you want. Number 9, you're never going to feel like it. Who said that? You're never going to feel like it. Do it anyway. You guys got to know who said it.
Nike. Just
no, they said do it anyway. They just said do it, actually. Mel Robbins, the 5-second rule. You're never going to feel like doing the things you don't want to do. Do it anyhow. So it could be something as simple as taking a piece of paper and filing it. You don't feel like filing all those papers. You don't feel like getting up and going to the gym. You don't feel like, excuse me, whatever it is, you're never going to feel like it. You got 5 seconds, count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When you hit 1, get up and go do it. You have to train yourself to do it though, because we're never going to feel like doing the things we don't want to do. And you're going to put the things you don't want to do off. And then they're going to pile up on you, and you're going to find out that the little things are the things that turn into be the big things. The 10th thing is get excited. There's not a successful person that I know that's worth their weight in gold that is not excited about what they do and the people they serve and how they get along in life. And here's the trick. When you stand back and you look at somebody, it could be at Starbucks or whatever, they come in and they walk out of there and people are smiling. They're smiling when they greet them. They're smiling when they left, just because they actually came across that person. That person's got something and they know it and they're spreading it. And you look at it. Have you ever looked at somebody and said, I wish I had what that person has? Well, you do, but you're just not showing it to the world. Does that make sense? All right. So here's the greatest tip. Now, those are action steps. I'm going to leave you with a tip. Now, this tip is powerful. I don't know if you've heard it before from anyone else. I doubt it. But if you haven't, certainly refer back to this recording. If you've heard it, then latch on to it. And then I'll give you the resources that I want you to have, and we'll close this up for a few questions. Here it is. Successful people understand that time is infinitely more valuable than money. Raise your hand if you ever heard somebody say time is money. Come on, raise your hand if you've heard somebody say time is money. Absolutely false. You've been fooled. And here's how I know you've been fooled. If I came to you and you came to me and I'm a doctor and you said something's going on, doc, and I find out that you have a disease and it's terminal. And I said, but there is one cure. It's really expensive. It's $1 million. Actually, it's $1 million, $1.5 million. But it'll save your life, but it won't save your life forever. I mean, you could get maybe 90 more days, 6 months. Are you going to pay the $1 million, $1.5 million for those 90 days? Why? Because time is infinitely more valuable than money. You can get more money. You can't get more time. Let me say that again. You can get more money. You can attract more money. In fact, somebody once said you can take all the marbles in the world and put them in one bowl. And pretty soon the same people will have all the marbles. If you gave them to everybody, the marbles will end up in the same hands of the same people. You could call it marbles. You could call it precious stones. You could call it diamonds. You could call it money. Because you can get more money and get more time. So I want you to understand how powerful that statement is. Don't track backwards. Are you tracking with me? Wealthy people, successful people understand that. So everything they do is based on saving their time, buying it back so that they can live a more meaningful, happy, fulfilling life. And if you can get that right, you'll totally understand what success is. And as far as I'm concerned, my definition of success is simple. I think the highest thing you can do, the greatest thing you can do in life is to add value to people's lives, however you define that for yourself. If you do that, the business takes care of itself over time if you get all the things right, and then you buy back a lot of your time, and now you live a more happy, fulfilling life, and you don't have to be a millionaire, a multimillionaire to really enjoy your life. You can be a thousandaire, you can be happy, and people will see it shining, that light shining in you no matter where you go. I'm going to open up for questions now, but before I do, here are the books. You know these books. If you have them in your library, that's great. If you don't have them in your library, I'm telling you, got to get them in your library. I've got a library behind me, and I'm still filling it. And these are some of the books that I fill it with. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Professional Failure by Justin Skinner. Maximum Achievement, Brian Tracy. Awaken the Giant Within. You've heard of Tony Robbins. And What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, Dr. Shad Homestead. What to say when you talk to yourself, because that's powerful. So raise your hand if you already have some of those books. If you don't have them, you'll be able to record them or go back to the recording. And there are at least 25 other books, maybe 35 other books. I have all the John Maxwell books, but that's a whole nother story. That's leadership, right?
Yeah.
But I hope this has been of value to you, this mastermind. Go ahead and ask the questions that you want to know right now, and then I'll close up with
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, let's have some questions for Randy.
Fund.
Yes. Habits. Well, for the same habits, like if you get up 5 a.m. in the morning and get stuck to something, you never get out and enjoying every moment. But for a success people, it's called habit.
Yep.
Or what he is a failure, or he failed in the definition of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And what if there is a habit you stuck on and which everybody thinks you are doing the wrong thing? How to get around that?
Okay, so if I understand your question, you're asking me if you have a habit and other people think that that's a habit or something that you shouldn't be doing, how do you get around that?
Yeah, game player, athlete, a great professional player mess up everything in his life, his family, his money, finance. But he is so good at this specific field, and he enjoys that so much, and he growing every day. But except himself, everyone else is seeing such a failure, right? It happens all the time in our life. How to
Well,
get
you,
around that?
well, you don't get around it. You don't argue with ignorance, number one. And if it's working for you, you don't compare yourself to other people and what they're saying. You're always going to have some conflict. And especially when you're doing well, there are going to be people, unfortunately, who are jealous and envious, and they can't support you. They're not happy for you, and they got to find something wrong with you. If you stick your head in that bucket, you're going to miss out on everything that is intended for you to have. So I would suggest you don't, I have a set of earplugs. We're flying out to New York tomorrow morning, and I put the earplugs in my ear when I'm in the plane. And that's kind of what you have to do when you're out, because as a high performer, as a successful person who's trying to be more successful, do greater things, there's going to be times when you're going to have to put your earplugs in. And that's the best I can tell you.
Charles had his hand up.
I'm sorry, say that?
Charles?
Charles.
Randy, there are four things I want to talk about that you covered. First
Okay.
off, I remember when you did that keynote at Cal Baptist and was still impressed with that. For people, and one of the things I've done over the years, and you kind of touched on it, when people are looking to join Toastmasters, I always suggest that they look at several clubs. They all follow the same routine, but find one that fits you. You talk about getting up at 5:30 in the morning. Zig Ziglar talks about that opportunity clock, and successful people are the ones who get up early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you said that I hope everybody heard is that when you're giving presentations, you need to internalize it.
Mm-hmm.
If you memorize it and you forget something, then your mind starts from the beginning. But if you internalize it, you can take right up from wherever you stopped.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it looks like Dr. Valencia Jones was asking, how did you come up with your morning routine? Did it change over time? And I hope she's still on and can hear. I came up with my morning routine out of happenstance because I knew I had to get smarter. I knew I had to take care of my own personal issues, right? And I knew I had to get plenty of rest in order to be a higher performer. So I started off by going to bed earlier and getting up earlier. And that allowed me to start working and thinking about the things that I needed to do. And over time, I developed, and again, part of that is studying people who are high performers, studying people who are successful. And so I extrapolated the people I was following who it was working for them. So I thought, okay, let me take this because this would fit. And I believe this would work for me and that would work for me. And so I put together my own list of things. So I have a daily routine now. It didn't happen overnight. No, I didn't just get up and go, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, and everything's going to be fine. No, it was tested over time and added very slowly into the routine. And I basically have internalized that. So it takes some thinking, it takes some time to really decide what works for you. And I cut things off. I stopped looking at television. Like Les Brown said, he told us in the MasterMind, he said, I don't watch television. I get my news from the internet very quickly, or my son tells me what's going on. And I asked you really serious about that? And I started thinking about it, and Tony Robbins says the same thing. And most people will tell you that that's a distraction, and it's an intentional distraction to hold people into a bubble so that they are mesmerized over what's going on here, and it's a distraction to them becoming successful. And you know, however you want to take that is up to you. If any of you are interested, I would share with you that there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Myron Golden. I started studying him about a year ago. He's on YouTube, and he is, in my opinion, one of the most fantastic, not just the way he communicates, the way he breaks things down in terms of skills, knowledge, ability. You can't even get into his mastermind I think it's $1 million into his mastermind. His coaching is $1 million. I mean, it's a no joke situation. But if you want to understand some of the philosophies that he uses to get where he is now, he is an absolute amazing individual, down to earth, but he's all about making money, but he's all about making money the way it was intended to be made and using money the way it was really intended to be used. And I'll leave it at that. That way, if you're interested, you can certainly go and look at that. Now,
Okay, Randy,
mm-hmm.
let me interject right now. Could you plug in the chat box your email so that people can connect with you? We need to adjourn the meeting in about 3 minutes, but for those who want to stay a little bit longer, you're welcome to do that. But make sure, Randy, that people can reach out to you. And if anyone else would like to share their email about something they're working on or questions that they'd like answered, connect with Randy, type your email in the chat box so that we can all stay connected and keep growing from this mastermind experience. So thank you. We have 2 more minutes. So Randy, you want to wrap up or?
Yep.
I see and other people making comments. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put my email address in there. It's randy@randypowellspeaks.com. You know, and I'm also going to plug in a link. Totally up to you. If you guys are interested, we've got a live event coming up here in Marietta, California, the 27th of October. You don't have to catch a plane. You don't have to catch a train. It's in your backyard, and got some wonderful guest speakers that are going to be coming on and joining. This is at the Hampton Inn, right off the 215. It's a new one of the newer hotels, and I think you'll certainly be interested in it if you're serious about being in business. We're going to cover a lot of information. It's going to be a fun-filled day. It's a full day. It's on a Thursday, October 27th. So I put the link in there, and what I'm also going to do for you is if you decide as a Toastmaster, because you're here today and you want to take advantage of it, I will also plug in right now the link to actually sign up. So the ad is in there and it covers the information that we're going to be talking about. And now the second link in there is actually taking you to the checkout. And that's a special pricing for you because you're here as a Toastmaster. Now, people in my community, they pay less than what you're seeing there, and people on the outside world, it's more, but it's investment for you if you want to take the time to show up and have a great time and learn a lot of stuff. That's the end of what I got to say about that, Miss Ross.